The recording has started.
Okay, let's call to order the special meeting on Friday, August 25th of the Vermont Community Broadband Board. Board members in attendance, we have Brian, Laura, and Holly and myself. Dan Nelson is absent today. It is 12:07 and we are kicking this meeting off. First item up for agenda is approval, or first item up for action is approval of the agenda. Make a motion that we approve the agenda as listed for the special meeting. Is there a second?
No, but I do have an amendment to the agenda.
Why don't we second it and then we can take discussion?
Okay, second then.
Thank you. Discussion?
Shouldn't we take just a moment while we're here to address the policy committees and whether they've been formulated and setting the time frame for the meeting of those committees as a reminder?
If we have enough time at the end of the BEAD 5-year plan, then let's talk about the policy committees.
Okay. And on that note, it would help greatly if the minutes would come out from the last meeting.
Would it?
I believe
what time?
Yeah,
Holly?
I think they're posted. Were they posted, Rob, or somebody from team? I confirmed that they were posted. I thought I saw them posted.
Where? I mean, so
they're posted on the website.
Okay. Could somebody circulate that to board members just as
Yeah,
a courtesy?
but you should know our protocol is to include those minutes in the board packet. We post them on the website, but we didn't plan on reviewing the minutes at this meeting, so we were going to include it in the packet for the next meeting.
And I know you're very religious and do a great job at posting in the board packet. It's just that if you want to talk about committees at any point, you need the minutes from the last meeting.
Yeah, I was not aware we were going to talk about that at this meeting.
No. I recognize, but you can't even work on it without them. So anyway, Patty, I've already taken up time. My apologies.
No worries. All right, so if we have time at the end of the meeting, we're scheduled to 1. If we have time, we'll take up the policy committee table.
Yeah, and I will also, I learned a few minutes before the meeting that public input is a statutory requirement. I did not include that in this meeting because I was under the, this was the sole thing we were focusing on in this meeting as preparation for this agenda. But
okay. All right, we'll add that before we adjourn then. Okay, with those 2 additions, with the policy committee table discussion, and we're including a brief time frame for public input. Any other discussion for the agenda?
Yes.
Go ahead, Laura.
So can we add a public comment period? Will that qualify if we do it here?
Yes.
Was it noticed appropriately for that to be the case? Yes.
It was not noticed appropriately, but you can adjust the agenda. It's legal to adjust the agenda at the start of the meeting to include that. I should have turned that over to Tony. Tony, yeah, that's your job to answer those questions. Sorry.
I believe that the notice for this meeting did not include a reference to public comment, but I believe the public did receive or did have access to the notice. So I think as long as we add it to the end of the agenda, we should be fine.
So Tony, this issue I thought was important because I had looked for the agenda and found, oh yeah, it's in the invitation to the Teams meeting. But I assume that it's posted publicly someplace. Is that on the website?
Yes, that's my understanding. And then it would also be posted, I believe it is the Department of Libraries site has all the public meetings posted.
Yeah, you might want to just check, make sure that we're not inadvertently missing a step.
Yes, and I believe it was posted properly. It just wasn't noticed properly.
Okay.
So I think we can manage it by adding it to the agenda at the top of the meeting as Patty's proposing now.
Okay, let's pack this issue up because I don't want to spend a lot of time on this and focus on. I do want to spend as much time as we can on the BEAD program. So unless there's anything else crucial on this, any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the modified agenda, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The ayes carry. First item up for discussion is the BEAD 5-year plan.
Yep.
Christine?
Yeah, first of all, I'm very excited about this plan. You know, I know the team has been working hard on this, our staff, as well as working with Vernon. But I also, want to start by saying, thank you to the board and the legislature for setting up the direction for this that allows us to really move pretty fast with this plan. We're one of the earliest states to submit a plan, although we're not the earliest state. And some of those earlier states, I've heard that their plans aren't as good as ours. So I think we have an excellent plan. I also want to thank Clay Purvis, who, I don't know whether he's here, but we've been working closely with the NTIA in development of this plan. So we're pretty confident it meets all the requirements of the plan that's required by the NTIA. And also, we had a very active public engagement process. So I definitely want to thank the Vermonters who have contributed to this plan, as well as the members of VCUDA. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Lucy to take the lead on it. Thanks, Lucy.
Sure. Thank you all. So as you remember, we went over the draft of the 5-year plan at the July board meeting. We then opened it up to public comment, and we received public comment from 7 entities. And also, as Christine said, we're working closely in partnership with our federal program officer from the NTIA throughout this process. We feel that the bones of the plan have stayed the same, but the public comments we received were extremely helpful in getting us to kind of strengthen the way that we presented both the work that Vermont has done and the work that we plan to do. And in your board packet, I summarized the changes that were made from the draft that we reviewed in June to the final, so that you could see kind of how we incorporated the feedback we received from the public. So I think at this point, I'm happy to speak more about any of the sections, but I think I would, if it's the chair's wish, just open it up to questions or comments from board members, since we have talked through the plan already.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to characterize this, or path to follow. I just also want to recognize all the work that went into this. It's 118 pages of fabulous reading. It's grounding, educational. It's written well, so you can read it. You don't get lost in the weeds. I just really want to compliment everybody who had a hand in this. Very well done. Thank you. And with that, I'll open it up for questions, comments from board members. I'm going to start off with one real quick question. On page, where did it go? Page 24, I lost the document, of the plan. It references, there's a fantastic table in there. It's PDF page 24. There's a funding source table. Get there. Just give me a second. I had to pull this back up because it closed on me. 30. Anyway, there's reference to state funding, matching of state funds of our 30 million. And I know that we have kind of encumbered those for helping the state and other purposes for flood recovery. Do we need to footnote that at all? So it's table 7, detailed funding inventory. It's the 3rd row, state, federal.
Yep.
Program.
Yeah, Patty, I see that, and we had this conversation actually as well. And I think the piece with the funding inventory is that it's always going to be a point in time, and the point in time that we did this at happened to be when we sent the final edits to the graphic designer. And as we're working through initial proposal volume 1, which is the next deliverable that we plan to bring to the board at the September meeting for a vote, initial proposal volume 1 also has this funding inventory in it. And so it's kind of the next, and that's what actually will be used by the federal government in kind of their analysis of what funding we have available and where it goes. And so our plan is to, and we'll also have a few other changes to make for initial proposal volume 1 to reflect the most recently approved pre-construction grants, for example. So our plan is to include that in initial proposal volume 1, the updates.
So I guess my question, Lucy, I'm not sure if you answered that or not, but let me restate that question. So for the 30 million, we have 20 million that's been borrowed for other purposes for the state, which we completely understand. We get, do we need to anyway indicate that in this document? That's my question. We have 30 million available, but 20 million of that right now is being used temporarily for some other things.
I don't know that there would be, as far as I can tell, I don't know that there would be any problem. It seems like more, you know, there. I'm fine. I'm fine with adding a footnote to provide that additional context. I don't see any reason why we shouldn't provide additional context.
My suggestion would be a simple footnote. Don't call it out in the table, but a simple footnote, just so that we're transparent and informing the federal folks.
Yeah, we've certainly been
communicating
this in real time with the NTIA. But we will
So
include.
let's put it in the document. Just again, as a footnote. I don't want to call out anything complicated here. Just put it in.
Yeah, no, Patty, I think that's a good solution.
And noting, Madam Chair, may I?
Yeah, go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, the commitment from the administration to recommend how to replace it. That there is a commitment to recommend replacing it, replenishing it.
If it's going to fit in the layout, it's going to need to be a pretty concise footnote, but
I think all the footnotes are at the end.
oh yeah, that's right. Okay.
So that'll just, you know, put a little whatever the next line is for footnotes, whatever the numbering would be.
Well, you would need to, yeah. I'm sure Lucy can figure it out. Okay. I have a question that falls in line. May I?
Yeah, go ahead.
I too found this area of the report pretty interesting. I also have some questions on page 78 and 80. And anything I'm going to say here is not to diminish the fact that a pile of work has gone into this. And I just want to understand what's happening here. That's really the nature of my question. So in table 6, which is PDF page 23 and report page 23, that's a nice situation. Of course, I had an eye on affordability, and it says that there is 34 million left to spend on affordability. But that made me think about the fact that this report aggregates funding that we don't have control over. So I wondered how you're thinking of this, Lucy. You know, how can we say what's spent and what's left over, and when we don't have control over it? And I'm specifically interested in where that 34 million is.
Yeah, that's a great question, Holly. And actually, some of the comments we received from Vikuda also reflected that same line of questioning. And I think, you know, the bottom line is that this chart is set up in the way it had to be set up to kind of match what the federal government wanted included and what the federal government didn't want included. So there's both. So it's not necessarily kind of the way we might look at funding from a VCBB lens, as far as, you know, what funding does VCBB have available or not have available in both directions. So an example of, as you pointed out, an example of funding that is included in this chart and is required by the federal government to be included in this chart would be things like RDOF awards, which the state, you know, capital S state of Vermont doesn't touch. but it is federal public money coming into the state that influences broadband. ACAM is in here as required. So yes, on the flip side, some of, one example, this is state and federal funding sources. So as we know, there's been a lot of private investment in broadband in Vermont that would not be reflected in this chart. In addition, private investment by CUD partners would, as part of kind of a, ARPA grant, would not be reflected in this chart. So this chart, kind of the specifications are really narrow to achieve the purpose of what is asked for and required from the NTIA. So that's the general just information about this. And then as far as your specific question on the affordability line, the majority of if you look down in the kind of table below, in the larger table below, table 7, that Patty was just referencing, that's kind of table 7 is all what rolls up into table 6. So you can go down there and track where that affordability total is coming from. And I believe it is all rolling up from, yes. It is all rolling up from ACP, and it's looking, and so it's kind of a, the available amount is kind of a theoretical available amount of if 100% of eligible ACP applicants were accessing ACP, that's the amount of additional federal money that could be coming into Vermont annually.
So, yeah, I understand that you've done what you needed to do by the rules. I just want to take time to say that this is not what it seems to us. So we can't be lulled into thinking that we have all these resources available for project-specific initiatives. A lot of it isn't within our control. We can maybe help leverage it, but we don't really have access to it. And as the report so adequately suggests, 82% of Vermonters aren't accessing that ACP allotment today. So I really appreciate the explanation. I wish that could be footnoted, because we're going to have readers who misunderstand what's happening here.
I totally, yeah, you're completely right, Holly. I think it's important to kind of recognize that the requirement is money flowing through the small s state of Vermont and not money flowing through either VCBB or even state government. It does in the, and I think that's why we kind of tried to emphasize the broadband deployment line as the line that is, showing numbers that might be more relevant to, or might translate more directly to money that we would have access to in terms of the available amount. But if you go into it is explained in table 7, which we say in the text that table 7 rolls up into table 6. And if you look at the affordability line on table 7, it does explain what these numbers mean and that it's an annualized rate based on current enrollment.
You really have to be an inside baseball player to understand that, though. So I'm just saying, if the legislature were asked to put money towards affordability and they're looking at this report, they would say, why?
Yeah, so that would be then, I think it's a fair point. That would be an important explanation to make to the legislature.
So what we're going to have to do in making certain requests is to caveat our own report and federal plan. Seems a little uncomfortable to me, but I don't see a way around it in the near term. So there it is. Patty, my only other comment is about affordability and more about how it's characterized by staff. And that comes up at page 78, but I can hold on to that while we get there, if that's good for you.
You have the floor, Holly, so why don't you go ahead?
Okay.
We can.
Okay, I'm going to travel there. One moment, please. it's hard to flick through these pages in a rational way. Okay. So I just wanted to note that this is on page 78, and it's a reference to the goal of ensuring high-speed broadband services and devices are affordable in advanced digital equity for all. So there's nothing wrong about what's said here, but I'm struck by the fact that this states that we need to define a strategy for broadband affordability. So that's an absolute fact. Okay. But then so that's under planned activities. And ensure affordable options are available, whatever that means based on our policy. Great. I'm glad it says promote ACP, but I'm really focused on what the affordability policy means. But I then go off to page 80, execution on non-deployment activities, which is code for things other than construction. And what it says in the text here, I just want to call this out, is in the first column, towards the bottom of that first column, it says that since broadband access is a major need for the state, the VCBB expects it will need to use all of its BEAD funding on broadband deployment projects. However, if the VCBB is successful in optimizing BEAD funds, the VCBB might be able to free up BEAD funding for non-deployment digital equity programming. That means affordability and other things. And to me, this is a policy statement. And so I'm not particularly pleased about this. I just want to call it out. I think there's a fact of we got to get construction done, but construction alone is not more important than affordability, and they don't happen in a linear way. So if the CUD comes forward and has a great affordability initiative that qualifies under BEAD, I would not want anyone to read this statement to say that the board isn't interested in hearing from that party. It's just a nuance, but I think it's important to say that the staff has made it a statement here that encroaches on our affordability planning.
Yeah,
Thanks.
Holly, let me just clarify something with that too. And I'm looking in the plan to see, I know we talk about this elsewhere in the plan. Actually on page 42 at the top, there's figure 9, which is BEAD priority uses of funds. And so these are the BEAD priorities. This is actually not a staff policy statement. This is BEAD requires that we prioritize serving infrastructure build to every un- and underserved address first, and then secondly, 1 gig symmetrical service to every community anchor institution in that order. And until we can demonstrate that we've done that in the state of Vermont, we are not able to use BEAD funds for any other purposes. So the paragraph that you were saying does not reflect kind of a policy direction or decision by VCBB staff. It's merely looking at the numbers and saying our expectation, unless we see unexpectedly high matches or private investments, our expectation is that we will be using all of the funds on infrastructure. If we don't, then we would move on to using remaining funds on digital equity and affordability.
I get that. It would have helped me if it had said, to the extent possible under the grant funding, but this is nuance. And I just wanted to be really clear that it's not game over for affordability under the BEAD funding. So I get it. So thank you. And it's helpful to hear how you're thinking about it. So thanks.
Understood. Thanks.
Okay, Holly, are you all set with questions? We have 2 other
I'm
hands up.
done.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely done.
Laura?
Yes, thanks. On page 87, these are definitions that came from the NTIA. And I have a question about the definition of reliable broadband service. Well, I would probably dispute that definition. I recognize it is one that came to us federally. So my question is to staff about the term means broadband service that the broadband data maps show is accessible to a location via, these are the places where I would probably dispute that being reliable. But that the broadband data maps show is my question. And so we know, and part of Vermont's Act 79 and Act 71 Odyssey is incorrect maps that showed coverage where in fact there was none. And so what is staff's interpretation here of what that means that the broadband data maps show?
Okay, good question. I'm going to try to make sure that I understand what you're referencing. So I'm at the definition, and as you said, it is pulled from the BEAD NOFO, so it's not a VCBB definition. So I'm not sure, is your question, would you like me to speak about the state-run challenge process that we'll be conducting this fall as an opportunity to kind of further refine the addresses we use for BEAD eligibility, or am I missing the
So
mark?
let me
and
give
it's
you,
something
let me
else you
give you
want
an
to talk about?
example. Let me give you an example. So I would challenge, and we can't, this notion of reliability for, say, fixed wireless, but we can't challenge that. It's in there. It's the federal definition. So what I'm wondering about is if we had a fixed wireless provider that pointed to a number of locations that were shown to be covered on the map, which is a real example of something that has
Yep.
happened
Okay,
where
I
there actually was
understand.
not coverage.
I can
So what
answer.
is, how does staff interpret covered broadband data maps show? What does that
Yeah.
mean to you?
Okay, yes, no,
And how does that get validated?
I completely understand this question, and I'll give a brief answer now, but this question you're asking is the majority of the content of initial proposal volume 1 that will be brought to the board at the September meeting. So I will give an answer now, and then I think if it's okay, we can talk more in depth when we have kind of the bigger document in front of us.
Right.
But the brief answer is that as we know, there are various maps and various versions of various maps, which has, I think, provided some challenges, or especially as states that have their own mapping systems are transitioning into BEAD and are going to be required to use this FCC map. So the state of Vermont did a great job of, challenging the FCC map earlier this year and getting it to be significantly more accurate than it initially was, while it still is far from accurate. Once we submit our initial proposal volume 1, which we're hoping to submit in a couple of weeks, we'll be submitting our state plan of how we can additionally refine the FCC map before we use it for the BEAD program. And so initial proposal volume 1 includes kind of that plan of what's called, there's a lot of challenge processes, so I'm kind of careful to try to not overly confuse language, but it's called the BEAD state challenge process. And in that process, one option the NTIA recommends, that is in our draft plan that we intend to submit, is removing all DSL from, or having all addresses served only with DSL be eligible for BEAD funding, regardless of what the reported speeds are. And we are working with the NTIA to understand what our options are for coming up with some sort of a similar path for wireless, given our knowledge in Vermont of the way Vermont's terrain and foliage impacts the ability to provide wireless above 120, which is what would need to be provided in order for the address to be removed from BEAD. So I think if it's okay, maybe we can keep that as a preview and have that conversation a bit more in depth in September. But I guess just to say that there is an opportunity for the state to further kind of refine the list of addresses that are eligible for BEAD, and that's kind of the bulk of what's in volume 1 is our plans to do that.
Yeah, so I think I am satisfied, really that staff is really thinking about this issue. As I said, this is one of the issues that propelled us to where we are today. That was part of the foundation of the VCBB. And so I'm satisfied with the answer to that question.
I'll say, sorry, just one more little detail. So in the volume 1 draft that went out for public comment, we had put in that draft that we would be treating wireless exactly the same as DSL. So we had said that, just like DSL is treated as eligible for BEAD, wireless will also be, end of story. And we're working really closely with the NTIA to try to find a path forward that will kind of serve the needs of making sure we aren't counting Vermont addresses as already served when they truly aren't, but also will be kind of an acceptable process that will work within the NTIA's needs and requirements. So it's very much an active conversation.
Great. And I will also note, we have in the past, and we may even today, I think we do today, allow for the process of self-certification. And again, we've been down this road in Vermont where it has not been as pledged. So I think that's it for me. Thank you, Lucy.
Yep, heard. Thank you.
Good questions, Laura. Holly, you're up.
Brian, did you have something you wanted before I take a second shot? So Laura's question stimulated a question that I'd been lurking on the fringes for me, Lucy, and it's this. This entire document is not our broadband policy. It's our broadband policy in response to BEAD. It's our broadband policy for federal funding under a particular program. And so I think it's really important. There is a footnote 2 that qualifies what BEAD means. It's just a reference to the statute. And I just think it's really critical to look at the whole thing and recognize that we have other agendas, we have other funding, and we have other programs. And we should not be adopting this as our one unifying plan. Is that how you see it?
It's yes, more or less, yes. It's the BEAD 5-year action plan. So as kind of we've talked about in both answer to both you and Laura's questions, it is in response to specific requirements from the federal government. And it's a requirement. If we do not submit the BEAD plan, we cannot receive our $229 of BEAD funding. At the same time, I think it was
29 million, you mean? Yeah.
What did I say?
229. I knew it.
Yeah, million. Yeah. That's an important additional word. Thank you. It's I think I would say that, it's as with any program, there's requirements that must be met, and within that, it has absolutely been our intent, and I feel really proud of the work we've done with this board, with the public engagement, and working with our contractors to make it as much as possible reflect the direction that has been put forward by Act 71 and by this board's policies and mission and vision. So I do think that there's room, and yeah, I feel really proud of the work we've done to try to make it as closely as possible reflect the Vermont vision.
Having said that, I'm wondering how problematic it would be for you to remove on the first page the subtitle Vermont's Internet for All Plans. I don't like the subtitle because I don't understand what it means, but it sort of seems like it's broader than the BEAD program,
Yeah.
which is referenced in the title itself.
Yeah, so this is unfortunately this is also like Internet for All is the NTIA's branding of what this plan is. So this is very much Internet for All is not a Vermont phrase we've invented. It's very much a description we have to use of what the plan is.
Could we say in response to NTIA or anything to qualify what that means? Or am I barking up a tree that's just not worth it? I mean, I'm looking to my board members and saying, are you prepared to bolster yourself against the tsunami of people who would say, this is it?
So I know you said to your board members, is it okay if I add one more thing,
Yeah.
or did you want? I guess so, and I actually wanted to say this in response to Patty's earlier comment about the footnote as well, which is, as we've been working through this meeting, I've been getting many texts and messages from our amazing contractors who have been with us every step of the way here. And it seems that making a change of changing a single word is going to require re-accessibility checking the entire document, because we've been really careful to make sure that this document it kind of is, is accessible and is able, and it's because of the way the document is working in graphic design format, we absolutely can, if it is something that the board feels is essential, we absolutely can and we absolutely will. But if there's kind of a small change that the board is willing, feels like they would like, but it is okay as it is, it's a small change is a very, very, very large change in a mountain of work, which we are absolutely able and willing to do. But
So
I wanted to bring that up in both
Yeah.
the footnote and this conversation.
Yeah, I don't want to make more work for the contractor. I actually would really love a breakdown of how much the graphic design piece costs. I was looking at West Virginia's filing today, and like, it's not pretty compared to this. And I bet it was a lot less expensive. But having said that, and not to be curmudgeonly, just curious, and that's not a request, it's just a thought bubble for you. Like, this is, it's a bad scenario when the formatting drives the content, but I have a solution other than the footnote change, and that would be to put a cover note on this.
I was just going to say I was just about to say that when we'll be posting this on our website, like that's where people will access this, will be through our website. Other than people who are accessing it through the federal government website are going to know what they're getting into, but people who are accessing it from a Vermont perspective will be accessing it through our website. So I would be happy to make the commitment that we kind of add, like couch it in that explanation anywhere that we place the link on our website.
Yeah, let me jump in here too, because I have a suggestion that when you pass your resolution approving the plan, especially I was thinking about this with Internet for All, you can make it clear that this resolution is to support the plan as written to meet the BEAD requirements. However, that is not, that's a subset of the work that we're doing in Vermont.
That's an excellent point, Christine.
And then, of course, we post that on the website.
Well, Patty's comment about the footnote and the need to restore the 30 million was for the eyes of the federal reviewers. Will they get that cover letter?
I'm sorry, the cover letter?
Well, if you're putting a cover on this that talks about the fact that the governor borrowed 30 million of our money that's referenced here is available to us, right? That's the footnote that we're trying to resolve. And you said something about when it gets posted federally, people will know where they're at. Will they see that reference if we put it in a cover? Or is it formatted for posting in a way?
I think the proposal was, so we've been, as I said earlier, we've been like, this is a conversation we've had pretty extensively with the NTIA, and we talked about it, and the conclusion we reached was that we would include this in the 5-year plan because it was a point in time, and that we could, and that when we submit our initial proposal, which is what's really used to design the programming for BEAD, that we would, we'll be updating a number of pieces on the funding table, and that will be one of them. So I'm not sure, like, if maybe we could take, if the board's vote is that we go otherwise, then we can.
So Lucy, what I'm hearing is, unless it's super important, the preference is not to change any words in the plan. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay. For me, I'm fine with that because I can read this table on page 24 to say, it says for the state federal match program, says matching funds for federal programs to be made available by the state of Vermont. I think that gets around the issues that are going on right now about a borrowing aspect, because the governor plans to return those funds. So I'm fine with the wording as listed, so we can get away from a footnote on that.
Okay. Thank you.
All the other discussion items, I'm not seeing as imperative to edit the report. And if we can work our way around that by another means, I'm fully in support of that.
Okay, thank you, Patty.
Again, I'm 1 of 5, unless I hear some strong objection here. All right. Any other burning comments, questions? It is 12:49, and I would like to move on approving the report, but I want to make sure everybody's had a chance. All right, hearing none, I'm going to put a motion on the table that we approve the plan as written to meet the BEAD requirements. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Brian. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Ayes carry. Congratulations and well done. Fabulous report.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for all your comments, sir.
That was a clever way, Patty, of getting around what could otherwise have been a lengthy resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent. Let's take public comment next, and then we'll move to the committees just to make sure we get the public comment in.
Okay, so for the public comment period, please raise your hand, and you will be given 3 minutes to speak. So anybody want to make a comment? Please raise your hand. We'll give it a minute for people to find the raise hand feature, which is upper part of the middle part of your screen. Going once. Oh, here we go. We've got Kim Gates. She would like to speak. Kim, please say your name and who you represent, and then feel free.
Hi, I'm Kim Gates, Franklin Telephone, and it's more of a generic comment that you can apply to this. Or I just always like to remind you that one of the big challenges are the line extension costs for all providers. And so I always circle back to the most useful program for my company was when the Department of Public Service had the line extension program. And any opportunity that your board can incorporate that is going to be most helpful to really get the customers connected. Going down the road is much easier than dealing with long, difficult drops. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to make a comment? Going once? Going twice? Okay, it looks like we've completed our public comment period.
Okay, thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is to talk about the policy committee assignments.
Yeah,
So
you should.
Christina,
Yeah, want me to take the lead on this?
go ahead.
Yeah, so, we've sent out to all of you, this, Patty and I have been working closely together on this. We've got, the CUDs have actively, I want to thank the CUDs. There are a lot of volunteers for each one of those assignments. We've yesterday identified which staff members will be present at some of those. I put my name in as default, but we have staff members added, and we've reached out to all of you. Should have emails with your assignment, which is highlighted, and who has volunteered to be part of your team. And Chance, who will be reaching out. Chance is scheduling this all through a doodle poll. I believe Chance, speak up. I think you've already, did you send out the poll already? I think you said
no.
Okay.
I have to include the updates from yesterday's meeting. However, those will be, the doodle polls will be going out this afternoon to everybody.
So I have to ask, would it not be helpful, Patty, if we set out what the board's objectives were here for a schedule, and so that we're clear on that, and then the doodle polls are for a first meeting of the committee, or how does the chair decide of each policy committee what he or she is going to need in order to have input? Or what is everybody planning to do? Have one meeting for the committee to give input, and then take that under advisement and make any revisions to the policy or create a policy given that input? I'm a little unclear on the process part of this. Just having doodle polls is kind of in the middle for me.
So Holly, process-wise, we have not set up a hard and fast process. We don't have a hard and fast timeline. That said, I am hoping that we can move this along expeditiously so that we can get policies together fairly quickly. Game plan would be before the end of the year. That's kind of in my head dropped down.
So all grants between now and the end of the year will be subject to these policies. Okay.
And recognize that we're going to develop the policies in conjunction with the CUDs, with VCUDA. And certainly, I'm looking for a process that's reasonable and effective. I'm not looking to create policies that are going to handcuff people and be difficult. I want to make sure we're able to move the ball ahead. So as we move forward, I really want to look forward to a process that's inclusive and that we're developing things that make sense. And at the same time, we want to move expeditiously so we get this together. The sooner we can do it, the better. Obviously, anything that can be kicked off quickly, let's do it. But there's no hard and fast timeline other than let's get it done before the end of the year.
I'm glad you clarified that. I thought we had talked about greater urgency than that at our last meeting. So thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, it would be best if we can get it done quicker than the end of the year, but I want to make sure that we do need time to discuss and have meetings and have the due process that's necessary. So we should be working right away, having that kickoff meeting as soon as possible with our subcommittee members and getting the work underway. And at every every check-in meeting that we have going forward, I'd like each of the committee heads to report out on where you are at.
So I will just note, if I might. Yes, may I?
Go ahead, Laura.
Patty? I also feel a pretty significant sense of urgency about these policies, and the end of the year feels like too long to me.
What would be your suggestion for a date that you think everybody can get the work done?
Well, October 1st.
How about November 1st? Because once you hit November 1st, the rest of the year is crammed full of other things anyway.
Good point. Why don't we say end of October?
Yeah, you know, I think it's just been drilled in, and you know, when we have all of these volunteer groups working in the communities, it's really clear to me that extending, you know, any kind of uncertainty is not helpful, or improving or helpful for morale. And so the sooner that we can get these done, the sooner we can take that uncertainty away from these volunteers. A lot of these volunteers, you know, we certainly saw some strong words come to us in our report this week about community volunteers. So it does seem to me like we should really accelerate getting this done.
Let's put a wish goal to be done by the beginning of October, but no later than the end of October. So let's.
So Patty,
You're under each of us.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Laura. Or I'm sorry, Holly.
So here's the thing about done. So there needs to be an opportunity for the committees to meet, to discuss, to give feedback, not to continue, you know, no room for continuous debate, but the board itself needs time to deliberate. So if you want done, the recommendations of each committee probably need to be available before November 1st.
Right. So if we can get the committees to make these recommendations for the beginning of October, perhaps have an additional meeting short in October, you know, we could be done potentially by November 1st. And, you know, when we think about funding schedules and construction schedules, you know, I just feel like that's the latest we would want to be. I think we'll be late for next year for the CUDs at that point.
It's certainly true for any commercial carrier, commercial company, that their funding budgets are set by then anyway.
All right, so we will work in Christine and staff will help us along on this and be our tools to get meetings set up. But let's work quickly to get through each of our items.
And the CUDs have their hands up, Madam Chair.
I can't see that, but
FX and Rob both have their hands up.
let's do Rob. Why don't you go ahead? I assume that's Rob Vetsky or Rob Fish.
Yeah,
it is. And I'll go really quick. Just to comment that BEAD Volume 2 is significant. I know that the board has now finished the 5-year action plan, and you have the first draft of Volume 1. It is more significant than what you just approved. Volume 2 will be the most massive piece, and it's on track to be done around November 1st, which means the review period is mid-September to mid-October. So in the next couple of weeks, we need to review the 100 pages in Volume 1, get that approved. Then we'll receive Volume 2, and we'll have to do that. And FX points out that the CDs are also doing their annual budgets and annual reports in the month of October. They're due. So just be aware that, you know, I think you guys are going to have a capacity issue reviewing Volume 1 and Volume 2 in the next 6 weeks. And we have the same capacity issue on Volume 1 and Volume 2, plus our annual budgets and reports.
So may I ask a question, Patty?
Of course.
of Rob. So Rob, again, we received some pretty strongly worded urging about uncertainty for the CUDs in this week's weekly report. And we can only resolve the uncertainty by actually getting the policies done.
Totally understood. I don't have.
So are you suggesting that we should go with the original suggestion of the end of the year? Or are you just commenting and letting us know that there's a lot of work that is going to be necessary in the next 8 weeks?
Yeah, I think I'm probably saying that I think we all agree that these are all equal priorities and they all have to get done.
Okay.
And so that we're probably saying not only that if we stick to this schedule, which I think a bunch of the CUDs would like us to, I'm sure a lot of people are happy that we're accelerating these policies. But it means both for us and for you, probably triple the effort we've had over the last couple months to get there. And we've
So
put a lot
I'd
of effort
like
in the
to-
last month.
Patty,
point.
I'd like to have a question about the deadlines that are set for the BEAD deliverables. And whether Christine can answer this or Lucy, I don't know. But are those BEAD deliverables set as the abundance of caution deadlines by the vendor, or are they the due dates by
Yeah.
NTIA?
Yeah, they're the due dates by NTIA. That's, all the states. I mean, there are states that are a lot more states that are struggling with this than we are. And it's been an issue that's come up at all the state broadband leaders network meeting. It was a serious discussion a couple weeks ago or 2 weeks ago in Indianapolis. The NTIA is not budging on this timeline. They actually, you have to get all of your funds committed in a very narrow window, because we only have a year, and apparently it's legislatively mandated that year. So it's really causing pain all across the country.
Well, thank you for filling us in on that. That's helpful.
Yeah,
Christine,
Patty.
I can't see the comments list in terms of who wants to comment. Can you let me know who that is?
We don't have any comments. Nobody has their hand raised at this point.
Nobody has. Okay.
No.
All right. Obviously, we will push as fast as we can to get it all done. But as Rob eloquently noted, it is a capacity issue on their side as well. But we will try to do our best to get it done as quickly as possible.
So Patty,
Yes.
can we actually task staff with helping get both the appropriate meetings that are necessary, board meetings? I mean, we're going to need to meet in September and October more
The board is
than
gonna have-
once.
Exactly. The board is going to have to meet more frequently than once a month.
Yeah. So can we, and the sooner, I mean, my September, I'm sure all of yours are jam-packed. So the sooner that we can get that nailed down, the better, including the subcommittee meetings, the policy meetings. And
I'm a little unclear on this. Is there somebody who's the staff support person for the board? Is that Chance?
Chance is your staff support person. Yeah, he's.
So,
And it's
so Patty, we need you to direct Chance to set these meetings for us. And
All right.
Yeah,
I'll work,
yeah,
I'll work with Christine to
yeah.
get that ship rolling.
Yep, Patty and I have a meeting on Monday. So Patty and Tony, I meet with Patty, Tony, and I meet, and then I deliver the instructions to staff.
Okay.
But for you as board members, if you need technical or support, with links or anything like that, you can reach out directly to Chance.
so with regard to the list that was sent out, it would be more helpful to me if there was now a version of that list sent out that added the category staff.
Yes.
Right now we have board, CUDs, VACUDA. There should be a category staff, and note the staff person, and recirculate that, not just for, I don't want to just know mine. I want to know everybody's, so that we have an idea of what's going on. And then
And
I'm
also, if that can be circulated as a Word document rather than PDF, that's helpful.
yeah. And are we understanding that when we want to call a meeting, we will contact Chance and Chance will send out the invitation on our behalf? Or are we doing this individually? Because I don't want to get crosswise with the state software systems and requirements.
Yeah, that's the email that you have. Staff, for the purpose of developing of these policies, staff, Chance as staff is going to provide the support you need in order to make that happen. We're starting with a doodle poll to find out when people are available. You know, he's taking that. So that you work directly with Chance on.
And Chance, can I advise Chance it'd be really a good idea to get us as committee chairs to give you some dates first before you send out a general doodle poll.
That's fine, Holly. You know, we'll do it as the board would like to set it up. I was just trying to get things set up as quickly as possible. I understood there was some urgency to getting these going. So if you want to let me know when you're available, I will move from there.
Thanks.
You feel free to reach out directly to Chance. If you have known scheduled dates that you're not going to be available, just pump that over to Chance right away.
Thanks.
And Brian, we set you up on, I forgot which committee, but you were elected to lead a committee. So just check out your email on that.
Yep, I got it.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
Thank you for this, Patty.
You're very welcome. Thank you for adding this to the agenda.
Yeah, and I want to thank staff. You know, understand the staff. I could speak for all of us at staff. We've been working a lot of hours, so I've tried. Tried to recognize life work balance, but it's been. But I also recognize, and I think all staff recognize, there are times when we're trying to meet deadlines that we're going to have to work extra time. But we've definitely been doing that.
Appreciate everybody's energy and everyone's mental capacity on this. You've all been champs, and thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you, everybody.
All right. I'm going to put a motion. We adjourn at 1:09.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor.
Thank you.
Say aye.
Aye.
Bye now.
Bye.
All right. We are adjourned. Thank
Have
you,
a good
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.